my name is Dena. I'm back today with another video for PotomacBeads. Today we're going to be doing my Iris Shield Bracelet. So look at the list of supplies that are listed down below, gather them up, meet me back, and I will show you what to do. Alright, so I have most of my supplies out that I need for this project. I have on my thread, I have my needle on my thread, and it is on the gold or the tan dragon thread. I'm using the size 6 today in the gold tan. It's going to work best with the color of my beads. And what we'll end up doing first is doing the actual shield portion. So this portion right here first. Then we're going to do the arms or the sides of the bracelet second. We're going to do that separately, and then we will attach it to the shield itself at the end. So we're going to start off in one of these sections, or one of these sides over here, over on the side. It's essentially right angle weave that we'll end up doing. So we'll do this portion right here first, and then we're going to add a lot of beads in succession to get essentially all of the large beads together in one piece. So in order to start this off, after I have a stop bead on the end of my thread, just to help out in that, I like to use my stop beads. We're going to add a primary 11-0, and in this one I'm going to use the tan primary. My secondary is going to be the Montana Blue Luster, so I'll call that just my blue ones. So I have primary 11, a 15, an 8, a 15, and 11. Now we're going to add our iris duos. Our iris duos, if you're not familiar with them, have a flat side and a puffy side. So make sure that they are sitting on the flat side on your bead mat. We're going to go through this iris duo, the first one, on the bottom hole. So here's your bottom hole, here's your top hole. So we're going to go from the bottom hole from the right to the left. Then we're going to add one of our secondary beads. And then we're going to go through this iris duo, also on the bottom hole from the right to the left. So when you get all of that down at the end of your thread, it will look something similar to that. Now we're going to round this out. I'm going to go through all of these beads again. And that will be our beginning of our right angle weave. And then I'm going to go through the first set one more time, which was the seed beads that we added, the 11, 15, 8, 15, 11, and come out the 11. Making sure that I do not wrap around the stop bead. So that's where we sit at the moment. Now I need to go from this 11-0 right here. We need to get to this top hole of the right hand side of the iris duo. Now this is where it could be a little confusing, so follow with me. We're adding a lot of beads. So we're going to add 3 of our primary color first, and then we're going to go in that second hole of the iris duo. And this is where there's a long succession of beads coming up. Okay, so we're going to add another iris duo. This one needs to sit in this fashion as well. This one we're going through the bottom hole again from the right to the left. Then we're adding one of our primary 11s. Now we're going to add our quad bows. Quad bows, we're going from the outer edge, which is the longer edge, to the inner edge. We're going to go through one of the middle holes. Doesn't matter which one at this point in time. So one of the 2 middle holes. Then we're going to add 3 of our secondary 11-0s. We're going to add our other quad bow, going from the inner side to the outer side, and one of the middle holes. There again, doesn't matter at this particular point in time. It will when we come back down. Then we're going to add another primary 11. We got 2 iris duos to add. Now these are going to sit like this. And you need to go through this hole. So it is the top hole from the left to the right. So add that one on. We add a second iris duo. We're going to go through in this fashion. Bottom hole from the left to the right. Now we're going to have to round out and get to the top hole of that last iris duo that we just added. To do that, we're adding 3 of our primary 11s. Okay, so I know that was a lot of beads all in a row. So let me get it all down here so you can see it. And get them all flipped over the way that they need to be flipped. Okay. Get that up to where you can see it again. Okay, so this was our first little section right here. So our iris duo, primary 11, quad bow, 3 secondary 11s, second quad bow, primary 11, 2 more iris duos, and 3 more primary 11s. Okay, so we're going through this hole of the iris duo. We're going to go through this one. Now, flipping it over and making it tight. I'm making sure I have everything right. It just didn't look like it was right there for a second. Okay. Because my iris duos are flipping around all over the place. Okay, I think that's right. We'll find out shortly and have to redo the video again. We're going to pick up one of our secondary 11s. Then we're going to pick up our iris duo. This one needs to go in that fashion. So this one we're going to go through the bottom hole from the left to the right. Putting that down. Hopefully I got this all right. I'll find out in a minute. Then we'll go from this hole to this second hole. So we need to add our 3 primary 11s and do just that. We're almost done with the confusing part of which directions the iris duos need to go in. Okay, now we're going to add another iris duo. This one has to be in this fashion. So this one we're going through the bottom hole from the right to the left. We're going to add a primary 11. We're going to go through that other hole of the other middle hole of that first quad bow and come out. Now in between the 2 quad bows, we're going to make an X. So you already have 3 of your secondary seed beads there. So we just need to pick up 1 of our secondary 11s. Go ahead and go through that middle of the 3 that's already there. Add another secondary 11. And then go through that other middle hole of your quad bow on the second quad bow there that we haven't gone through yet. Okay, and then when you pull tight, you have an X there in the center. This one flipped over. Okay, now we're going to add this little section right here, this portion up here. So we're going to add our primary 11. And then this one is going to sit like that. So we need to go through the top hole from the left to the right. And then your other iris duo is sitting there already. So go through the open hole, which is that bottom hole from the left to the right. And then pull tight. And if things seem a little loose, it's perfectly fine. We'll be going through the majority of these beads again. So everything should fall into place here in the next step or two. We got one more thing to do on this section to round this out, we need to get up in here again. So let's go ahead and add our 3 seed beads. Or from this hole right here, you can go ahead and go back through without hitting your stop bead. The first set of 5 beads that we added at the very beginning. The 11, 15, 8, 15, and the 11. And my computer just shut off. Alrighty, so get to that and meet me back and I will show you what to do next. Okay, so your thread should be coming out of the last of the first 5 seed beads that we added. What we'll do next is we'll go ahead and go through that extra 3 seed beads that are sitting off to the side, and in this step we will tack down those iris duos that are kind of flopping around a little bit because that second hole is not attached to anything yet. So we're going to get to that spot next. To do that, we're going to add primary 11 and 8, 2 more primary 11s, and then we're coming out of this 3rd seed bead here. We're just going to go straight down to the hole of the open hole of the next iris duo. If you want to, you can go ahead and tack onto the 4th hole of the QuadBow sitting there. We'll be going through that next anyway. So if you want to go ahead and tack onto that, that's fine. So now we need to get from this hole to the 2nd hole of that other QuadBow. To do that, we're going to add a 15, primary 11, and a 15. And then go through that other QuadBow 4th hole. And if you want to, and if your needle can, go ahead and go through that iris duo that's sticking out on this side. There we go. Now this portion right in here is going to wobble around a little bit because the size of those beads is actually bigger than the space that's sitting there. So in another step, we're going to make this stick out to make another X sitting right here. So don't worry about that. We'll fix that on the next round. So now we need to get to that upper iris duo. So we're going to add 2 11s, an 8, and another 11. Coming out of this bottom iris duo, go ahead and go through the 3 seed beads up here at the top. We're going to make our way to the other side. To do that, we're going to mimic what we did down here at the very beginning. So we're going to do an 11, 15, 8, 15, and an 11. And we're going to go straight through the 3 seed beads over here. And I'm just flipping it around so it's easier for me to work because I'm primarily right-handed. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing on this side that we did on that side. So it was 1 11 and 8, 2 11s. Go through the open hole, the QuadBow at the same time if you can. Then we're adding a 15, 11, 15. Going through the open QuadBow hole on the next one, as well as the last iris duo that's flopping around. And then now we're going to get to the top. So 2 11s, an 8, and 1 11. And go ahead and go through just those first 3 seed beads. We don't have to go through everything again. So just the first 3 seed beads. So now all your beads should be down to where they're not moving around too much. So go ahead and get to that spot, meet me back, and I'll show you the next. Okay, so your thread is coming out of that 3rd seed bead, sitting right next to that first iris duo that we added at the very beginning, because that's where my stop bead is. So I'm flipping this around there again because it's easier for me. So we're going to go through that bottom hole of that iris duo. And if you can, go ahead and tack on to the 11-0, the alternate 11-0 that's sitting right there too, because we'll need to go through that. Make Make sure you're not wrapped around your stop bead again. Okay, so now what we'll end up doing is we're going to add this last iris duo on to where it sits on top of your X sitting there. So to get there, we're going to add a primary 11, a 15, an 8, and a 15. Now what we'll end up doing is putting these beads so they sit vertically. I had to remember, I almost said horizontally. I'm like, that's not right. They sit vertically like this, sitting here. But we're going to split them. So we're going to add beads here, and then we're going to split this way, and then when we come back, we'll add beads over on this side and come back up. Hopefully that made sense. If not, just keep watching. Okay, so we have these, the 11, 15, 8, and 15. We're going to go through, since my thread is coming out of the right-hand side of this 11-0 here, we're going to go through the right-hand side 11-0 that is sitting up against the quad bow. Just go through the 11-0. Don't go through the quad bow, because we're going to add beads on top of the quad bow so the iris duo can sit on top of the X. So that's where we're at now. Now on here, this is where it can kind of vary, just depending on what size beads that you're using, and sometimes the finishes make the beads a little bit thicker, sometimes they're a little bit thinner. It really just depends. So it really just depends on your preference as to how many beads you want to add. So you can add or subtract depending on what your liking is. This one I'm going to add 2 of my primary 11s, a 15, a primary 11, then a secondary 11. So I have a total of 5 beads, 2 11s, a 15, and 2 11s. I'm going to add my iris duo. Now my iris duo is going to sit like this. So we're going to go through this hole on the right hand side, going from the bottom to the top. And then when you drop that all down, that will look something like this. Now we're going to have to copy what we just did on this side to get over to this side so we can round out and come back down. Do that, we're going to put 11 and 11, 15, and 2 more 11s. Then we're going to go through the 11 that is on the right hand side of the other side of the quad bow, and just through the 11, skip the iris duos, skip the quad bows. From there we're going to add our 15, 8, 15, and 11. And then the alternate blue 11-0 is where we're going to round out. So go through just the 11-0, going from the right to the left. Okay, now I have to switch this again. And I'm pulling snugly on the beads, so that way they kind of sit without any thread showing. So now we're coming out of the right hand side again of that blue 11-0 on the bottom. This one we're not going to add any extra beads just yet. We're going to go back through the 11, 15, and the 8 if I can. And don't go through that second 15, just come out of the 8, because this is where we're going to do that split that I was talking about. So just go through the 8, or the 11, the 15, and the 8, come out of the 8. And tug on it a little bit. Now we're going to add your 15. Now this hopefully is not too hidden, but you still have an open 11-0 on the right hand side before this quad bow. So you need to go through just that 11-0 and not the quad bow like my needle's trying to do right now. And then come back out. And I'm getting things all mixed up. Okay. Move that down. Sorry if that was fast. Sorry. Okay, now we're going to add the same beads that were on the now left-hand side, so that way we can attach the right-hand side of this iris duo. So 2 11s, a 15, and 2 11s in whatever combination that you'd like. Go ahead and go through the right hand hole currently of that iris duo in the center. Then we just need to add the 2 11s, 15, 2 11s. Go through that last open 11 on the other side of the quad bow. And just the 11, skipping the quad bows, skipping all the iris duos. And then, sounds like my dog's getting fed. And come on out. Got one more bead to add in this step, so add a 15. Then we're going to go back through the 8, 15, and 11. Just like that. Our original thread is coming out currently the left-hand side of that blue 11-0 in the center. So we will go in the same direction, go from the right to the left through that again. All right, so that is the end of this step. So now you have your last iris duo sitting there on top of your X in between your quad bows. So get to the end of that step and I will show you the next one. Okay, so your thread and needle is currently coming out of the left-hand side of that 11-0 in the center. Again, this is at the bottom because that's where my stop bead is. Again, I'm going to flip it. So now what we're going to add is we're going to add beads on the outsides here, in between, or in these sections right there and on this side. So to get there, we need to go through that iris duo that is on the left. And then go through the 3 seed beads, or start at that second primary 11 that's on that side. And we're going to go through all the seed beads on this side. We're going to come out, which I think that's what, 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 11s. And then the 8, and then the 2 11s after the 8. And we're going to come out of that one. Okay, so now we're going to add the beads. And remember how I said a couple of steps ago that we're going to use this to form another X? This is that step that we're doing that in. So we're going to add, got to look at my little cheat sheet. We're going to add a secondary, an 11, a 15, an 8, 15, 11, 15. So we have 11, 15, 8, 15, 11, 15. And then we'll go through that 11-0 that's sitting in between the 2 15s from the very beginning. And it's not wanting to go through just the 11. Okay. And then pull tight. And that should put those beads along the edge. Now we're going to do the opposite of what we just did. 15, 11, 15. What was it? 8 and an 11. Right? 15, 11, 15, 8, 15, 11. Just making sure. I feel like I'm missing a bead. I am missing a bead. Okay. I will say that one more time because that was confusing. It even confused myself. Okay. So we added a 15, 11, 15, 8, 15, and 11. Okay, now we can go through the 2 11s and the 8. Go ahead and go through all of the beads around the edge. And then do the same thing on the second side. So you're getting yourself all the way to the beads over here. And then you will add the same beads on this side. So then I will meet you back where you have this side finished as well. And I'll meet you back up in here somewhere. Okay, so I just ended up having my thread come out of one of these seed beads in between some of the 11 O's up here at the top, or at the bottom, excuse me, because that's where my stop bead is. The step we will be doing in this one is we're going to go around the edge one more time, and we're going to tack down that middle iris duo because it's very wobbly. It's not going to sit straight. This is a step you don't have to do if you don't want to. I just preferred to do it that way, so that way, like I said, this is not wobbling around so much. So I'm coming out of one of those beads. What we'll end up having to come out of is that second 8-0, so the 8-0 that we just added on the last step. So I'm coming out way over here, so I'm going to move through all of these beads. And if it's getting too tight, it's fine. You can actually go up through your iris duo and around again if you need to. Perfectly fine. Just get yourself to where you're coming out of that second 8-0, the 8-0 that we added in this last step. So I'm at the 11s, and then now I'm going to that second step, or that last step. So that's the 8-0 that you want to be coming out of. So get yourself oriented to that. And then we'll start adding the next beads. So we're coming out of there. So here again is another one of those situations where I'm adding quite a bit of beads, but you don't have to. It just depends on how many beads that you want to add, depending on how much movement that you want, and just your preference, really. So I added a 15, 3 11s in the primary, and a 15. I'm coming out of that 8-0 again. I'm going to go straight through the iris duo, skipping those beads, the seed beads that are sitting there. So we're just going to go through that whole of the iris duo. And again, I'm not going through the seed beads. It looks like it's sort of on the video, but I promise I'm not going through those. I'm just going through the iris duo. And then pull tight, and that'll sit just like that. Do the same thing on the other side, 15, 3 11s, 15. And then we're going to go through the 8-0 that's on this side. Then we're going to work our way completely around to the other side and do the same thing. And this is also strengthening the edge of your shield portion of your bracelet. Putting extra strands of thread through most of everything that's on the outsides will help with stability of the bracelet, especially if you're anything like me and I like to unfortunately be rough on my jewelry that I make. So I need to strengthen my jewelry as much as I can. So now I'm coming out of that 8-0 again. Here again we're going to add our beads on this side. 15, 3 11s, 15. Go through just the iris duo. Skip all the beads, the seed beads that are sitting there. And just go through the iris duo. And then when you pull tight, then you can kind of notice how your iris duo is not moving as much, which is one thing I prefer. And then your last round of beads. Go through your 8-0 on this side. And then all you have to do now is go straight through the rest of your beads until you get to your stop bead up here. And then we're going to go ahead and tie off and be done with our shield portion. So I'm going to get to that stop bead. I'm not going to bore you with tying it off. You just do it right over left, left over right. Tie it off and then burn it down, and then your shield portion is complete. So then we will go through the next steps. I'll show you how to do the ladder stitch of the bracelet itself, and then I'm doing a cut button as my button, and so we're going to do a cut button on one side and then we'll do the loop on the other side, and I'll give you the counts as far as how many rows of ladder stitch and how many beads to use in a cut button that's similar to mine. So get done with that and meet me back. Alright, so then on this step, I'm going to show you how to do the ladder stitch. Now the ladder stitch that I did in the sample piece is just a typical ladder stitch where you just have the 2 beads and you see the thread lines in between the beads and everything. On this other version, I'm going to show you how to embellish that ladder stitch a little bit, so that way if you don't like to see the thread lines, then you can cover them up a little bit using your 15-ohs. So in order to start off, I've got a new piece of thread. I've got another stop bead at the end of the thread again. We're going to put our button on first. It's always best that if you're using a cut button of any type to start off with your button, so when you make your loop, you know exactly how many beads that you have to put around it. So to do this, we're going to start off with an 8/0. I'm going to put 3 of my alternate beads on the needle. Go ahead and go through from the bottom to the top of your cut button. We're going to embellish the top, putting 11, 8, and 11 on there. Go down the other hole of your cut button. Add 3 more seed beads. And then round it out through your 8/0. Now, just like anything else that I do, I'm going to reinforce this. Now, of course, if I was wearing this, I would definitely be doing it at least 3 times. For time's sake, I'm just going to do it one more time. It also depends on your preference. And then come back out of your 8/0. I hope I was in frame then. I don't think I was. I apologize. Okay, so we're coming out of the 8/0, and my stomach is growling. And we're going to start the ladder stitch. To do that, we're going to pick up 2 beads. Our thread is coming out of the left-hand side of that 8/0. I'm going to move my stop bead out of the way a little bit if I can. I put it on there kind of tight. Okay, so we're coming out of the 8/0, the blue 8/0. I added the 2 beads on the needle and thread. We're going to round out and go back through the 8/0 again, which then puts our beads on top of the 8/0 in not a very clear fashion. There we go. That's a little bit better, I think. Just something similar to that, which looks a little wonky, but that's fine. It'll start looking like a ladder stitch here in a second. So then we're going to go back up through the left-hand side bead to where we're facing outwards. There, that looks much better. Like that. You're always going to be starting your next row of your ladder stitch from the left-hand side if you're going in the direction that is similar to what I'm going in. Now, I have a pile of about 35 beads right here for this particular bracelet. To get about a 7 1/4 inch bracelet, you'll need about 35 rows of ladder stitch on both sides. So I've got a pile of about 35 beads here, and then I've got an extra pile up here. So that'll help me count, so that way I can just pick up one from each pile. So that's what we're doing. We're coming out of the left-hand side. We're going to go down the right-hand side bead after we've got our 2 beads for our next row on there. When we pull tight, it's still going to look a little wonky, but it's going to look something similar to that now. Go back through your 8/0. Now we need to get to that topmost left-hand side bead. So to do that, we're going to go through the 2 beads on the left. And then now you're set up for your next row of ladder stitch. So to do that one more time, so add 2 more beads coming out of the left-hand side. Now we're going to go down the right-hand side, but just go down 1 bead at a time. So we're just going down the 1 bead on the right of the ladder stitch. So now we have to get ourselves back over to the left-hand side, the topmost. So go directly to the left, which would be the 2nd bead from the top, and go straight through those 2 beads. So now you're set up for your next row of ladder stitch. Now this is where we're going to start our embellishment. So if you'd like to do that, then follow along. So add your 2 beads. You're coming out of the left. Go down the 1 bead on the right. Go ahead and pick up a 15-0 this time. Now go directly to the left. So you're going up the 2 beads on the left-hand side. When you pull tight, that then puts your 15 in the center, pretty much covering up any type of thread that you may see in between the beads there. So I'll do that one more time. So 2 beads coming out the left, go down the right, just the 1 bead, pull tight, add a 15, go directly to the left, which would be the top 2 beads on the left hand side, go through that, pull tight again, and it puts your bead, your 15-0, in between. So continue on with that until you have 35 rows. Again, it kind of depends on the length that you want, the clasp that you're using. There's several different factors as far as how many rows that you need to do. On this one, on the gray one, I ended up doing 39 rows of gray beads, and then I started adding my cut button after that. So, like I said, it just kind of depends on your length that you want, the beads that you're using, because of the coatings and stuff like that that are on it that make it a little bit thicker, a little bit thinner, depending on which ones that you're using. So, go ahead and get that done, and leave your needle on your thread, and I will show you how to attach it to the base, or to the shield portion, in just a moment. Okay, I got a little overexcited and I actually attached my cut button to the shield without showing you how to do it. But never fear, this is the same way that we're going to attach this side with the loop. Now as far as the loop, I started it off the same way that I did with the cut button. Started off with an 8-0, and then I ended up putting on 28 seed beads, 11-0s. Again, that count's going to differ. So definitely double check yourself. That's why we start off with adding the button first. You always want to double check yourself and make sure your loop is going to go over your button, because there have been several that I have made in the past that I think it's going to work, and then I get done with it and tie it off and burn it down and everything, and then I can't close it. So definitely double check yourself. So again, I started off with an 8-0. I did 28 seed beads on this one. I rounded it out a couple of times, double checked myself. It looks like it's going to work just fine. And then I started the ladder stitch the same way that I started on the other end. So now I have my 35 rows of ladder stitch on here. So we're coming out of the left-hand side still of the ladder stitch. I'm going to orient my bracelet to where it makes it a little bit easier so you can see what I'm doing. Now we will attach this to this 8-0 that's sitting right here. So going from the left-hand side to the right of the 8-0, go straight through that. Again, this is the same way that we attach the other side as well. And then you want to go down just the 1 bead again on the right-hand side of the ladder stitch down there. Now we're going to go ahead and finish out our embellishments. We're going to add another 15. I have to pick this up. Go back through that last bead of the ladder stitch. So it's in the same fashion, we're just not adding any extra beads on this one. And then go ahead and pull tight. Go back through your 8-0. Maybe. And not anything else. Okay. Kept wanting to try to go through that 15. Just go through your 8. And then now I'm going to reinforce it a little bit. So I'm going to go down 2 beads. Since I went down 1 bead the last time, I'm going to go ahead and go down 2 beads on the right hand side. Go ahead and go through the 15 that's sitting there as well. Go back up the 2 beads on the left. And I'm going to reinforce it one more time. Go back through the 8. We're going to go down 3 beads on the right. Again, this is something that you don't have to do it as many reinforcements as I'm doing. Just depends on what your preference is. Go to the through the 15 on the left, go up the 3 beads on the left. And again, it may be getting a little tight as well, depending on what thread you're using. Go back through your 8. Okay, so now our stop bead is way down here, but it is on the right-hand side. So we're going to very gracefully, don't pull too tight, go straight down the right-hand side of your ladder stitch. So just tug it just ever so slightly so there's no thread showing, but you want to go straight down the stitch. Now if you get too tight with your tension, it will end up buckling, which I'll show you that here now. You go straight down and see how mine ladder stitch is essentially straight. If you were to go too tight, it would buckle up a little bit and start curving. You don't want that curve. So if you feel like you're getting that curve, just tug on it a little bit like that. Just hold on to the bracelet and tug on it, and that should help get it to where it's spread out a little bit, but not too spread out to where you see a lot of thread. You're just wanting to go down all the way until you get down to the end. So I'm going to go all the way to the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and go through, make sure I'm in frame, go through that 8-0 one more time, and then go up 1 or 2 beads, doesn't really matter how many. Whoops, not that many, just a couple of beads. Okay, I'm right where that 15 is at, so I'm going to go ahead and go through the 15 and then go back down towards your 8-0, or sorry, towards your stop bead. Okay, now you just loosen up the stop bead thread if you can, and then tie it off, burn it down, and then your bracelet is done. Oops, see how it's twisting? So my tension's a little tight there. Okay, so you just loosen it up like that. You just massage it around and everything, and that'll help kind of loosen it up. So go ahead and make your knot, tie it off, and burn it down, and then your bracelet is complete. Thanks everyone for watching my Iris Shield Bracelet video. I really appreciate it. I really hope y'all have a good rest of your day. And don't forget to like and subscribe so that way you can get notified when Potomac Beads comes out with their next video. Also, don't forget to go to Facebook, and then that way we can post all the different pictures and all the different colorways and everything that y'all can choose to do. Thanks again. Y'all have a good day.